Hi guys, I know this isn't necessarily the subject you expected to see this week, but I thought I'd show you something that's probably quite topical because a lot of us are getting our equipment ready for the summer. And this is an old ride-on mower and it's got a Tecumseh engine in it, but it's not running really well, and I've had issues with the magneto and the getting the spark cry, and I think that's okay. It's backfiring and does seem to be running lean. It's as if the timing's out, but the timing's fixed pretty much on these, so it does seem to be running lean. So this is the carburetor here, and I was going to clean out the carburetor, and we took the bowl off and did some carb cleaner. There was some sediment, but no difference on there. So I was going to get a carb kit on there. But what was interesting, this was on Amazon, and I ordered it yesterday, and it arrived today, and today's Sunday, bearing in mind, and it's a complete replacement carburetor. And it cost £13, so it was way more sensible just to get one of these. All of the idle jet, everything in there is fixed. You can't adjust it, so really all you have to do is get fuel in here, connect your air filter to this side of the carb, and you see you've got the choke mechanism on this side, and on the other side you've got your throttle, and that's your throttle idle. So that's pretty much all you can do to adjust it. So I'm going to take off this airbox and we'll just have a go, and I'm just going to record the process as I do it. Of course, being an American engine, it does need Imperial bits, but fortunately, after years of Land Rover ownership, I do have them. Some 7/16ths here. So watch out for that. If you're using an imported gadget, and to be honest, a lot of these are, all these MTD and Toro, Craftsman, they're all American brands, you may well have those Imperial fittings, so don't go too nuts and try to wedge on a metric where it's not wanted, because although there are some that are pretty close, you do run the danger of rounding it. And if you are using a metric on an Imperial, probably make sure you're using something like this, which is a hex head rather than, I don't know what you call the other ones, where it's got 12 sides on it, because that will really increase your chance of rounding something. So we're just undoing those bolts, and I can see right away that this mechanism is coming loose, which is great. That's just going to save us some time, so we can just bend that round and it should just pop right off. Nearly there. Come on, come on. Nice. Save some effort. Now, what do we need to do to get this off? Unfortunately, I think there's another mounting point on this that's hidden away. In fact, there is. I can see it now. It's just at the back here, so I'm going to whip that off. I'm going to try to leave the air cleaner assembly as intact as possible because I don't really fancy messing with that. And we have another bolt size. Okay, great. I can see it starting to loosen already, so it's getting a bit wobbly. Now on this particular mower, for some reason, there's no fuel tap. So have a look at yours, make sure if you've got a fuel tap you want to knock that off. So I do have my little mini vice grip, so I am going to do that, but you've always got the danger that you're going to damage the pipework if you do that, but that's all I've got right now. You don't really have to go too nuts, so just keep loosening it until it's just biting, and then that should be absolutely fine. So let's get the air filter off now. There's a breather pipe on the back I've noticed. You can see it right there, this pipe here at the back. Let's see how that comes off. It's probably safer to take it off the housing, filter housing, yeah, than the engine. Leave the pipe in the engine, just take it off the housing because it will just slide right off. Have a little smell. It's alright, it's just got a bit of grease on there. That certainly looks like it could do with replacing at some point. I might just give it a wash out with some solvent. And because we're working carburetor, there's going to be some petrol around, so we'll have a little bit of spare solvent. And I'm just going to start loosening that fuel line, just to start thinking about getting it out of the way, just the clip. Because as soon as we loosen the carburetor, all of this is likely to start moving around and it's going to be pretty difficult to get a grip on anything. Here we go, almost there. And that's it. Now that's pretty much off now. I'm just going to leave it there loosely. Didn't have the right bit, but a 5/32 hex seems like it's going to do the trick. I'm just checking this linkage to see if we can take it off beforehand. Seems like it doesn't want to go. Let's just leave it be. Again, I've got not quite the right part here, so I'm going to be a bit ginger with it. And I can see here this idle screw was set all the way in, and you can see on the carb, that's the idle screw here, and it's set all the way in, which is keeping that throttle butterfly open. So if you have something where it's idling too high, you can try winding that back in. In this case, I think because it was missing and popping and spluttering so much, the previous owner probably just did that just to keep it running. But yeah, there's so much wrong with this when I got it. It's really hard to know what they did. So I'm being a little bit ginger here because I can see there's a gasket. We don't really want to ruin these gaskets because I don't think the new carburetor came with them, so I'm going to be a bit cautious. If you can, you want to slip a Stanley knife down here and just push those gaskets away. I got a bit curious, and there is one gasket in the box, so that's good. So we don't have to rely too much on all these. So let's get that Stanley knife in there, gently, gently. Seems really quite tenacious, actually. I think this gasket's going to go south. Oh, no, it came. And we've got another gasket here for the airbox. I'm going to remove that one. Brilliant, that one came out intact. We're going to leave the old gasket on there since we don't quite need it. Now this carburetor, to me, doesn't look particularly old at all. In fact, if we compare them side by side, you would think that they're probably made from the same castings. They're so identical. So I don't really know if this was a particularly old carburetor, and the worrying thing is, of course, if it's not an old carburetor, it was a new one, it means the issue in the engine could be somewhere else. But let's just hope it's down to poor maintenance. So I've got my finger over the inlet for the float chamber, so we don't lose too much fuel everywhere. I'm just going to go and gingerly put that in a bowl, because it's going to empty petrol everywhere, and then we're going to get the other one on. I'm just checking this gasket face to see what it's like. In fact, there is still a gasket on here. I'm going to take that off. I don't like that at all. Makes me worried now. So when you've got things like that going on, you could potentially have an air leak, and that would be a really big problem. The gasket that came with this is super thick, so you definitely don't need two. And if you were going to use two, you'd probably put a lick of Hylamar between the two to make sure that they are properly sealed. Now just using your knife, again, sorry I can't zoom in, I don't really want to touch the camera with such filthy hands. Just get your knife blade and just very gently, a very shallow angle, because you don't want it to dig in. So if you imagine that's the thing, you want to go really flat like that, not like that where you're digging in. You don't want to damage that face, and just get rid of the little bit of fluff that's on there, and then you're going to be ready to install the new carburetor. I'm just going to give this a little ginger brush with a very gentle Scotch-Brite type cloth. In fact, I think this is one that's from the kitchen rather than from anything else, but it's just giving it a nice little polish. Nice. We're ready to go with the new carburetor. So what I did off camera before I started filming even, I went at it with some brake and carb cleaner, which, as the name implies, it's for cleaning these things, and I sprayed through all of the various ports that I could see, just in case there's some manufacturing gunk in there. So we've got our brand new gasket, and that looks absolutely fine. That's going to do a great job. But before we go any further, let's make sure we get this linkage back on, because it's going to be a nightmare. And interesting enough, you can see there, actually, you see that little black thing? It's already got the bushing in place, so we can remove the bushing off the old linkage, and we might keep that with the old carburetor as a spare. And just make sure this is pushed in, and then a little twist and a flick of the wrist. So it looks like there's a little flat side there on that bushing, a little flat side. That's the side which is going to be where the dog leg is. So you'll see what I mean when you start playing with it, because you've got to go around the dog leg, and it'll have to align with that, otherwise you're never going to be able to twist that linkage into the awl. I'm just trying to take my time with it because I don't want to break it. But yep, there you go. It's in now. And then we'll get that gasket. I'll line it all up. Again, I'm just taking my time. There's no rush at this point. And I can see somebody's put a bit of red Loctite on here in the past. I haven't got any, but I think we're going to be fine. If you've got some, dab it on. You could always use maybe a bit of super glue. I'm just going to now tighten that carb back in. It's got a way to go because you can see here that's acting as a nut. And that'll do. You don't have to go nuts. It's only a small engine. Everything's aluminium. Don't over crank it and break it. That's good. Get the fuel line. Oh! Place for the petrol. Get the fuel line back on. And if there was any mistakes now, we'd be seeing petrol pouring everywhere. As I said, I don't have a little stop cop, pet cop, whatever you call it, on here. So that carb should be getting nice and full. So remember, we're going to put the airbox on next and then reassemble everything and start it up. Remember, don't forget the gasket for your airbox. And I think there's probably enough room, there is, to get in there and put your choke cable on before your airbox gets in your way. You've got absolutely plenty of room to do that. So there we go, that's in ready. You see, once that airbox goes on, we were going to put that in. Okay, airbox breather back on. Gasket ready. In fact, we can slide the gasket on in place. And I'm just eyeballing up this choke mechanism. I kind of feel there could have been some better adjustment on this, so maybe my issue was the choke. Who knows? Let's get the airbox on, and I'm just, again, looking at it all as I'm pushing it on just to make sure everything's sealing up and that gasket is exactly where we expect it to be. Looks good. Let's just get all these nuts and bolts back on. Almost there. Now have a think about your choke when you're doing this. You've got your linkage here. You can see how clearly it worked before. If you need to adjust your choke stroke, just undo this Phillips head screw here and you can move this back and forwards a little bit and that'll adjust that. You want to make sure you've got the whole range of play. And even I'm not convinced I have. So at the moment the choke is in all the way. In fact, I need a better screwdriver because this is not Phillips screwdriver. And it turns out on this it's a 1/4 inch. I'm just going to undo that. So now this can move backwards and forwards loosely. So I can see that would be the choke all the way be disengaged. And yeah, it could have done a bit more. So I've just clicked it through a little bit. So I'm going to tighten that in that position, which is great. And then I'm going to pull the choke. And that choke now opens 100% because the lever is now at 90 degrees. So that's giving me the full range of choke. So as it was, if this was set up exactly the same, which I suspect it was, it means that you would have had the choke on always a little bit. I think it's a good time for a test, but before I put the engine cover back on, I'm going to see if I can get it started. Bit of choke. Ooh, sounding promising. There you go. So hopefully that's been of some use to you. I think it's working a lot better than it was. Little backfire there, I don't know what that means, need to check that out. But I'm going to get the covers on this and I'm going to start running it in, and hopefully that'll be the end of it. And I can see my lights are breaking now, so there's never a dull moment, always another job to do. Bugger. Oh, it's fixed. See you next time.